Look, when we make poems, it is so easy to get things really, really complicated because maybe you're trying to tie in different similes or metaphors or different images. Maybe you're trying to make some analogies. Maybe you're just trying to focus on the story that has multiple moving parts. So it can really bring up a lot of opportunities for you to lose your reader if you're not being careful. Or maybe you've been that lost reader in a poem, just be like, wow, this is a lot of things to keep track of. And that can work well for a poem that is entirely based on lyric, potentially, where the emphasis is really more on emotion. But if you are targeting narrative type structures at any level in a poem, it can be helpful for your reader to make things that are trackable. And so today, we're going to be taking a look at a poem that was written by Matt Thomas. Thanks to Matt for allowing us to check out the piece. We're going to see what's happening in this poem here to see what are the things that are occurring. Can we track the movements as the poem works from its first line down to its very, very last? Let's dive into. Guys, this is Fine Print. This is our weekly Sunday show right around 9 p.m. New York, where we take a look at a poem that you give to us. And we just kind of see what's going on. It's not really a feedback session. It's not a workshop session. It's more just literal analysis based on an initial reading of the poem to see what is actually happening that maybe we can take some lessons from and apply to future work and to guide you in this process. There is me. Hello, guys. My name is Jeff. It rhymes with breath. Let's load up our piece so we can see what exactly are we dealing with. Also, I'm going to give a quick shout out. This poem was originally published in Cleaver Magazine. So congrats to Matt on the publication. Just grab my marker and we'll do a quick read through. So this poem again is called Pop Song. These eggs that I wash every morning before tucking them into the carton remind me of washing my daughter. No, less carefully, with an eye to the future, knowing her cost and improbability, like stroking a pocket rabbit's foot. Thumb stopping on the sharp bone beneath the fur. The luckiest things are the least likely. Roll an egg in your palm. It's a spirit level finding true. Once, stumped around a friend's deathbed, a nurse suggested some music to pass to. I think of that phrase, humming to the radio above, the hens squawking, winners to date, praising. All right. Thanks again to Matt for allowing us to look at this piece. And again, we're just trying to track the movements, okay? So we're starting off with just some eggs. We have eggs that I wash every morning. So I imagine, where am I place-wise? Okay, so it feels to me like I am in a kitchen. I'm at the sink, potentially. I wash every morning before tucking them in a carton. Or it could be like some sort of kitchen, or it could be like maybe a farm area, like a chicken coop. Okay, so it could also be outdoors. Okay, before tucking them into the carton, remind me of washing my daughter. Okay, so we're comparing washing eggs to washing a daughter, which there's a lot of similarities there. I think that as an image makes sense. You could think of a daughter in a sense as an egg. And I think you see that later on too with the next line, like with an eye to the future. You know, when you have a child, you're often thinking about what is going to happen in the future. You're planning, you're making predictions, you have hopes and things are going to happen. And I think an egg kind of captures that sense of what as well. Knowing her cost. Again, things that are connected to eggs, right? Eggs have costs, literal costs in terms of, you know, you're going to have to pay for an egg a lot of times. Or improbability. Okay. I like that with an egg too, because you don't necessarily know like what's always inside the egg. Like sometimes you see like blood spots. Sometimes you get like two embryos. Sometimes you get a different color than you were expecting. Like it's I like that sense of improbability. Also, again, tied to the daughter. You don't know how the daughter is going to turn out either. So I see a lot of these connections between eggs and the daughter, and the speaker's relationship with the daughter, and the speaker's kind of thought process around eggs. I think there's a lot of little layers here that feel very woven together. So after that, as poems are often want to do, we get a jump. Okay, so this whole section here is different than what came before it, right? Everything before is really focused on eggs. This next one is really focused on luck. And by the way, like, I've never heard it called like a pocket rabbit's foot. We've all heard of, lucky rabbit's foot, but we use the word lucky down here. So I appreciate, I feel like this is super intentional because it's like we don't want to keep using the word luck. So I like kind of the avoidance strategy here between pocket and luckiest. Pocket also kind of gives you that sense of smaller, which again can tie into things like the egg, or things like the daughter who is younger than the father. So I think that's an interesting connection there. Let me make this bigger for you guys. Okay. So we have this shift that kind of catches us off guard. And you've heard me talk about it before, but when I worked with Ivy Francis, one of my favorite pieces of advice that she gave is, every poem needs to have something that's a little bit strange, a little bit weird. This pocket rabbit's foot is a little bit strange. Okay. And also the connection is so sharp bone beneath the fur. It's interesting. You have contrast here between, the eggs that are washed. So the eggs most likely don't have bones. So this is like standing in contrast. Versus the daughter, who we are going to imagine does have some bones, probably some sharp ones as well, right? I would hope. Okay. So what I like about this rabbit, or what I see this rabbit foot doing is it's very different than like the egg sequence that we had in the couplet and the tercet above it. But there's still things that are kind of thematically connected. This idea, this like focus on the luck. The luckiest things are the least likely. That's an interesting line. We don't know enough about like the relationship between the speaker and the daughter, but even this has a sense that maybe like maybe there were issues with like pregnancy or something like that, right? Okay. Not that there has to be, but I feel like it's suggesting that there is some sort of attention. I mean, some sort of tension, not attention, just tension. There's some sort of tension between like luck and being likely or unlikely, which I think kind of stands out. After that, we kind of return back to the egg. Roll an egg in your palm. It's a spirit level finding true. Okay, so we return to the egg. And I think this is an important moment in the poem, because what's happened is that previous stanza with the luck feels a little bit different than everything else, right? We do egg, the rabbit foot / luck, and now we're back with the egg. So I feel like this is a way to kind of draw the reader back into remembering what the poem was really centered around. That first image with the egg. Okay. And we actually see a similar strategy to that as well at the end, where we get the hens. So we don't literally mention egg at the end, but we do mention the hens. So that kind of brings us back again to the first moment. There's this kind of full circle thing going on, right? We start off washing the eggs and things like that, and we end with, listening to the radio, and I imagine washing the eggs, but also at the same time also hearing the hens, and things, and we're listening to the radio. So it kind of is building on the very first scene. And that's something you see a lot in poems. Kind of like I think you mentioned something in an earlier poem, bringing it back in later. You have to be careful when you're doing it, because if you're too on the nose, if it's too perfect, it's going to feel kind of gimmicky. I think it helps that we don't mention the word, eggs in the last stanza again. Okay, so that way it doesn't. We do mention hens to kind of allude to it, so we're being a little bit more subtle, which I appreciate. Okay. In between these moments, we had the roll an egg in your palm. It's a spirit level finding true. And I think this is something you see a lot with poems, where a line is going to introduce a new concept that maybe didn't appear elsewhere. And then the next line or next couple lines, they kind of run with it, right? So we get the spirit level finding true. That's an interesting line, a little bit weird, right? A spirit level. So it's like I feel level like the tool level, trying to see if something is level or straight. And then true I take to mean like, is it actually like something like truly level? Okay. So like almost saying that like roll an egg in your palm, or like, have your daughter. And these are ways of kind of finding, is your spirit like balanced correctly or things like that. It's kind of how I interpret that line. I'd love to know how you guys interpret it too. But anyways, we get the sense of spirit again. In spirit, I feel to me it's kind of connected to like the deathbed part. And even like there's some music. Okay. You also, how else does this deathbed image fit with the poem? Well, this is a poem that to the moment has really kind of been focused on like life versus death imagery. And, I think superficially it goes heavy on the life stuff, but there's also lots of little insinuations of death. So for instance, like washing the egg itself is lifeless, right? If you're taking it and washing it and eating it and things like that, then most likely it's not something that's fertilized. So the eggs itself is while being a symbol for the future, is also quite literally lifeless, right? Same thing with like the rabbit's foot. If it's a real rabbit's foot with the bone and the fur, you're using it for luck. But again, this is also something that is, even more than the egg and the embryo. This is something that at one point was alive and then was, died or was killed. And so now, with these moments of life and death, this is the time where it's the most overt, right? Overt. So once stumped around a friend's deathbed. Stump is also an interesting choice, right? You think of like stumping like a tree, like killing a tree left with just the stump. A nurse suggested some music to pass to. And then what's the connection here? You see music. I think of that phrase, humming, and then the radio, and then so everything's really going heavy on the sounds. And then praise, you think of praise, almost makes you kind of think of like psalms, which were also intended to be sung. So the music imagery really comes through. So music being connected to the humming and the radio, and in some degrees to the squawking and to the praising. So I think one of the things that I just want to highlight before we head out today is just that notice that everything, the stanza that comes before has elements that the following stanza can continue and build on. We just see that over and over again. Okay. Hopefully those things are apparent. Hopefully this is something that you can also apply to your own writing too. So this is a way that you can add some layers. And then connecting your layers to previous layers. So to give an example of that, we connect the eggs at the beginning to, again, the hens at the end. So are you able to do that in your own poem? All right. Other things that you noticed about this piece, especially with regards to kind of just following the thread that kind of links all the stanzas together. What are some other things that stood out to you in the piece that would be great to hear your thoughts. Also want to give again a quick shout out to Matt Thomas for allowing us to check out your work. Greatly appreciate it, guys. Just to note, I'm going to a retreat. I get to graduate, so I'm going back to Cave Canem. So for those of you familiar, it's a poetry retreat. So I'm going back literally next Sunday. So unfortunately, we won't be able to do our Sunday stream, but we do have lots of other things happening this week, including our normal stream, The Verses Live, on Tuesday on the channel. On Thursday, we're doing our free author photos and a recording yourself reading a poem. Friday, we have our open mic. And then on Saturday, we actually are doing, at the Arts Festival in Columbus, we are going to be doing a live video podcast episode as well. It won't be streamed, but it will be recorded. So keep an eye out for that because it will appear on the channel at some point, or at least pieces of it will. Once more, my name is Jeff. Guys, thank you so much for your time. We will see you later. I hope you have a good day, have a good night, and have a good afternoon. You guys take care.